Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Today we're going to go back to visit Queen Mary when she was Princess May and see what happens after her father's stroke. Well, this stroke really threw the family for a loop, and Princess May's mom didn't want to believe he had a stroke. She kept trying to make it up to be something minor. But it's been a pleasure reading the book Queen Mary by James Hope Hennessy, and there's so much to find out about Mary and her family. The family, they went to stay at the Hotel Sonnenberg at Seelsberg on Lake Lucerne, and the family stayed there for a month, and the Duke was getting what they called the water cure there. Their apartment was nice and clean, and they had enough bedrooms, and they had 3 windows that gave the view of the lake, and they also had a table of their own to eat their meals in the dining room veranda. So Princess May at this time continued her studies. She got up at 7 in the morning and worked until 1. The afternoon she was in the sitting room, and at 5 they would walk in the woods or sit and read aloud to each other under the trees. And Peter Wells hired a piano for them, and they had nice musical evenings. While they were there, they also looked around the lake, and they took a walk on the mountain roads. Princess May wrote that the road was steep, but with the help of our alpenstocks, we got down quite well. One walk, though, Princess May wrote that poor Mama's stick broke, and the first week there, her brothers Dolly and Frank came for their summer holidays. This made May happy. She had her younger brother Algy, but he was too young to be a companion for her. He was an overweight boy, and Dolly and Frank, which were her brothers, thought that he was their mother's favorite, so they teased him and overdid it a little bit. Mary, she didn't scold her children very often, but she wrote a letter to her elder sons and got on them for being unkind to Algy. She said he was only a child, and that they should humor him instead of knocks and pinches and bruises and hard words and teasing. She thought it was unmanly of them. So the water curate worked for the Duke, and after that the family went to Württemberg Cousins on the Bond de Sea. I hope I'm saying that right. Then they stayed at the Hotel Horn. It was said life there wasn't exciting, but it was restful, and the Duke enjoyed being there more than any other family members because it reminded him of his childhood. So the Duke, he took the boys out sailing on the lake, and Princess May painted, and she played on the beach with her cousin, and she was 5 years old, her cousin was, and the family spent a lot of time with the cousins. But it seemed like the Tucks were always on the move, and they next went to Austria, and they resided again near a lake, and they stayed there for 2 months at the Hotel Goldenes Schniff. And 2 months later, they moved again. Next, they went back to Florence to spend the winter at Cedri. All that moving would wear me out. So finally, in April 1885, the Duchess of Cambridge, who was Princess Mary's mother, said that they could come home at once. And for some reason, Mary said it was out of the question and that they couldn't leave Florence before the end of May because there were so many arrangements to be made. Princess Mary's mother was surprised because they'd been trying to help the family in their situation. But finally, on May 22nd, everything was settled. They paid off the servants, the luggage got packed, and they paid their outstanding bills to the shopkeepers. And then Duchess Mary took a tumble. Princess May said poor Mama had a fall last night. She caught her foot in a piece of rope of the carpet and tried to save herself, but could not, and fell heavily on the stone floor and bruised her left elbow and arm and strained her left side. She limped her way to the train station on May 24th, and they got back to England on May the 24th, and they went to Duchess Cambridge's apartments at St. James's Palace. They arrived in England on the same day of May's 18th birthday. They had a warm reception, according to the Duke. He said nothing could have been kinder than our reception by one and all. He said that in his diary 3 days after they arrived in London. So the Duke had gone to White Lodge and found it in a neat and cared-for state, and he was delighted to see it. I'm sure he was, after they'd been gone for 2 years. Princess Mary, she wasn't anxious to go to White Lodge. She wanted to see her London friends. And Princess Mary wasn't home very long when she got into it with her Cambridge family. Mary wanted to take May to a court concert before she had been presented and confirmed, and the Duke, he agreed with his mother-in-law that he thought May shouldn't go socializing until she had been regularized by presentation to the Queen. The Duke was starting to feel like his old self again, and he had a lively discussion with Mary about it, and it kind of made him feel unwell for a day or two. So May, at this time, she suddenly found a voice, and she had a wish for her confirmation. It was that her brother Dolly and her be confirmed together. The grandmother, uncle, and aunt then went to May herself instead of her mother Mary to talk to her about it. And she got her wish, and they were both confirmed on August the 1st, 1885, at Chapel Royal. Now Princess May was allowed to take part in public life. She would be with her mom, and she was silent, slim, and fair. In June of 1888, Princess May and her family were involved in the Golden Jubilee. She said the weather was superb and that the people were loyal to a degree, and she said things went well. And the Queen's procession went through the streets, and the princes rode by her side. May wrote that we had a little procession to ourselves, 3 carriages, Mama, Papa, 2 princes of Anhalt and Meningen in one. Mama received a wonderful ovation. She put 3 exclamation marks in her diary. Not surprising, I think, considering all she had done in this country, only a just reward, I should say. So the Duchess Mary was always confident that she would be getting a wonderful ovation. She was overweight, and she was greatly loved. She had a way of tilting her plump face upwards as she waved, and that meant that the people on the rooftops and balconies, who would only see the headgear of the other royals, saw the Duchess Mary's radiant smile. She learned that trick, and it was one that the Queen's daughters could not or would not compete. This was the beginning of when Princess May went with the Duchess of Teck on many charitable enterprises, and she did that for 6 years. Wherever the Duchess of Mary went, so did Princess May. She became familiar to the public as the fair-haired grown-up daughter of Duchess Mary. Well, Queen Victoria started to take notice of Princess May, and she asked her to stay at Windsor Castle with her parents. Queen Victoria again said that she didn't think May was pretty, but she was a very nice girl, distinguished-looking, with a pretty figure. And the family got back to White Lodge. Things were now less lavish, with fewer carriages and horses, so the daily excursions to London were no longer possible. That had the Duchess of Cambridge allowing her daughter Mary and her granddaughter May to use 2 of her rooms at St. James's Palace at the height of the London season. And then Madame Bricka took over tutoring Princess May. She had her studies on a wider and more modern basis. She was to live at White Lodge with the family. The Duke liked her, and Madame Bricka said that I never came back from a holiday without finding that the Duke had done something to her room. As we found out in previous episodes, the Duke liked to be a decorator, so I guess he found it challenging to do her room too. She said she would thank him, but he would say, "You know this is your home, and I want you to feel at home." Madame Bricka was domineering, and she treated Princess May like she was still a child, and she was a good influence on Princess May. She brought in her teachings of free thinkers. She made May read the George Eliot books, historical memoirs, modern history, and blue books on industrial and social conditions. And there was a joke that Bricka had been asked to read with Princess May so that she, the Princess May that is, wouldn't waste her time waiting for meals because Duchess Mary wasn't very punctual. Mary would be at some function and she didn't get home on time, and it would be like 2 hours after dinner should have been served. She would go to her room and change into leisurely clothes before coming to the dining room. And it was said that Princess May's family, that she had read all 3 volumes of Motley's Dutch Republic while waiting for her mother so they could have dinner. Bricka was also May's confidant, and she could talk things over with her. And Madame Bricka was also able to help Princess May, who was working as a secretary for her mother. Duchess Mary was working at private and industrial charities. At this time in England, during the 1880s, poverty was widespread, and even though the Duchess worked herself to death to help it only helped a tiny percentage. And when May became Queen Mary, she lived to see socialist and many basic changes in England, and Queen Mary learned more and more about the causes of poverty. Princess Mary, or Duchess Mary, gave her patronage to any charity, bazaar, or organization that seemed genuine and efficiently run. Princess May learned from her and did the same when she became Queen Mary. So Princess May's grandmother, the Duchess of Cambridge, died when Princess May was 24. Princess May at this time was still single and living at White Lodge. So I'm going to end the video here. Princess May was soon to find herself engaged, and we'll see how her and her family reacted to that. So it's been something to hear about this family and how they traveled around in their exile years. It must have been exhausting. I'm glad they were able to return home after 2 long years. It did the family good, and we could see how close May and her mother were, not only living together but working together to help the poor in London, and they both gave it their all. I also liked learning about the personalities of not only May, but her father and mother as well. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. It helps me know I'm going in the right direction. And I hope everybody's been having a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.